When it comes to the Bundesliga, it has become a running joke among football fans that it's always going to be Bayern Munich who end up winning the title, and that all that any team in Germany is competing for is in fact second place, or at best or at worst a spot in the Champions League. However, we finally seen that hegemony of Bayern Munich getting broken at long last, thanks in no small part to, of all teams, Bayer Leverkusen. And there's a reason I say of all teams, because if you had to pick any of the sides in recent memory who could have potentially given a fight to Bayern, you would have picked either Borussia Dortmund or maybe even an RB Leipzig. But Bayer Leverkusen, there's no way you would have picked them, and there's a simple reason for that. It is because if you analyze the history of not only the football club but also the city of Leverkusen as a whole, they are a club that at best should have been a team whose best case scenario would be a constant long life in the top flight, which to be fair has actually happened. But in this video we're going to talk about how it is that a small little town on the eastern Rhine of Germany, and a team which has predominantly been tagged as always the bridesmaids or serial underachievers, went on to achieve what many thought impossible. But to give you a bit of a context as to why it's such a big deal for Leverkusen to win this title, let's take a little bit of a look at the city of Leverkusen in itself. Now, when you're talking about the town, it's one of the smaller towns on the eastern Rhine riverside. Now, it used to be a village once upon a time, but has grown out a little bit more than that, and now in today's day and age has a population of about 163,000 residents, which is about 163,000 people. That's not a lot. It is a pretty small town, and in fact it gets more often than not overwhelmed by the city of Cologne, which is of course a much bigger footballing hub. Therefore, it's always been given, let's say, a little bit of a stepbrotherly treatment. It's not been a town that's been taken seriously. And in fact, if you're talking about the town of Leverkusen, there's exactly two things that are popular or well known from there. One is, of course, the football club, and the other is the pharmaceutical giants Bayer. Incidentally, both are linked because the history of the Leverkusen club is that it started out as a recreational club for employees of the pharma giants, and their legacy is still intertwined, which is why they're known as Bayer Leverkusen. They're named after a pharma giant that till very recently had a turnover of about 41 billion euros. That's how big the company is, but that hasn't been a guarantee of success. In fact, it has been exactly the opposite. Because if you're looking at a brief history of Bayer Leverkusen, there's not really a lot to look at as far as title wins are concerned. They did win the DFB Pokal, which is the German domestic cup tournament. They won that in the 92-93 season, and prior to that they did win the UEFA Cup, which is of course now known as the UEFA Europa League. They won that in the 87-88 season. But other than that, their history has been one which has been forever defined by being underachievers, or worse still, by going on to reach the final or reach a point where they're about to win a trophy and then lose it. In fact, in one particular season, it was the 2000-2001 season, they ended up finishing second in the Bundesliga. They ended up being the runners-up of the DFB Pokal, and also ended as the runners-up in the UEFA Champions League, which jokingly and rather cruelly earned them the nickname of Neverkusen. Yes, they were no longer Bayer Leverkusen, but they were Neverkusen, and were taunted mercilessly by German fans all around the country. So it was never the easiest of times. In fact, if you're looking at just that one season, it represents the nadir. But overall, they finished runners-up in the Bundesliga 5 times. They finished runners-up in the DFB Pokal 3 times, and also 1 time runners-up in the Champions League. A definition really of a club that is always the bridesmaid but never the bride. However, as another old saying goes, that when it rains it pours, and the 2023-24 season is really proof of that as far as Bayer Leverkusen are concerned. Why? Because as things stand, they are one of the only clubs, or in fact the only club in Europe's top 5 leagues to currently have gone unbeaten throughout the season. In fact, as things stand, they've gone 43 games unbeaten in the 2023-24 season, and that includes every single competition they've played, whether it be Europe, whether it be domestic cup games or the league. In fact, in the league, if you're looking at their record, it is imperious. They've played 29 games so far, won 25 and drawn just 4. That is a phenomenal record, especially when you consider the fact that this team was assembled at the fraction of a budget than say a team like Bayern Munich or even a Borussia Dortmund or an RB Leipzig. This team definitely a more cobbled together unit that is greater than the sum of its parts. Now, the real question at this point is that can they go unbeaten all season? Because again, they've already won the Bundesliga. They are one win away from the DFB Pokal once again because they have entered the final. And potentially a treble could also be incoming. They are currently playing in the Europa League, not of course Champions League, but a treble of that sort would be unprecedented for a fan base that up until this point had experienced precious little in the way of success, and not just that, but also belittled for the fact that they had ties to Bayer. Remember, German football fans are notoriously traditionalist, and there's a reason that the 50+1 ownership rules, which gives voting powers to the fans, is something that has remained as long as it has. So having any kind of ties to any kind of private companies is generally frowned upon. It's why RB Leipzig fans are never taken seriously. It's why the club is more often than not derided, and the same treatment has in many ways been meted out to a Bayer Leverkusen as well. That being said, Leverkusen have overcome all of this and then some thanks to the wonderful coaching that Xabi Alonso, the former Real Madrid and Liverpool legend, as well as Spain legend, have imparted on the club. I mean, there's no coincidence that Xabi was at one point being linked to both of his former clubs come the end of this particular season, and there were even rumors that Bayern Munich wanted him to spearhead their next project. All of that has been put to rest because he signed a new contract with Leverkusen, and as football fans, all you can really hope is that he can help Leverkusen grow even further, because the Bundesliga as a whole really needs more such stories, and overall really the sport definitely needs a lot more teams to start challenging the elite in order to make it seem a lot more fun again. So that's the story of Bayer Leverkusen. If you found it an interesting one, make sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell as well. Leave us a comment, tell us your thoughts on what you thought about, let's say, Leverkusen's title win for the ages. Also, go ahead, follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Don't forget to download the Sports the Cap app. If you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos we've done as well. Now, from my side, it is goodbye.